Hi, so reviewing Easter Bunny Bloodbath here, a 2010 holiday Easter themed slasher film directed by Richard Mogg. This runs about 80 minutes, I think. It doesn't actually have the running time on the back of the box. I've just got that from the IMDb, so hopefully that's accurate. And it seems to have been followed by a belated sequel about 10 years later in 2020, but I've not seen that, so I can't really comment. I learned from watching the extras that there is actually an alternative cut of this film. It was released on a very limited VHS format which had different artwork, and that was a slightly different cut of the film supposedly. But if you're looking to buy this now, that's probably really difficult to find. So you'll most likely be picking up this DVD that you see here, which is quite readily available from eBay and from the SRS Cinema website. Yeah, this is the the artwork for the front anyway. It's the back, and I should say that a couple of the scenes, I don't know how well you can make them out on camera anyway, but a couple of these images weren't actually in the film, I don't think. I don't recall seeing that one or that one, but maybe they're from that alternative VHS cut possibly, I'm not sure. And that's what the disc looks like. That's just like a promotional card for SRS Cinema, I think. So that's basically it. That's the spine, that's the packaging anyway. Quite a bizarre tagline, one of the strangest that I've come across here. I don't know if you can pick it out on camera, but hippity hoppity, death is on the way. Bit of a strange one. But anyway, let's get into the story for this. Obviously, like I said, it's an Easter themed holiday slasher. And we start with a prologue segment where a young boy is left traumatised one Easter morning when someone in a bunny suit decapitates his older sister right in front of him. Events then jump forward to the present day, which is supposed to be set in the 1980s. So it's so this prologue was supposed to take place in the 60s, and now we're back into the 80s, which is the present day. And Peter, the kid from the prologue, now a grown man in his 20s, is visiting a woodland cabin that he has recently inherited from a dead family member for the Easter holidays. So he's going there for like an Easter break. And joining him is his pregnant partner Lisa, as well as 4 other friends. But not long after settling in at the cabin, however, Peter begins seeing the same murderous Easter bunny from his childhood popping up all over the property. Initially, his partner Lisa is convinced he's just imagining things, but slowly as the story begins to unfold and their friends begin turning up dead, she realises that she and Peter are in terrible danger and that there is indeed something sinister going on. So that's the plot. And I'm going to talk about what I liked about the film, the good points for me, and I found the central characters to be a bit more nice and a little more wholesome, really. It could be one way of putting it compared to what you usually see in slasher films. I know one criticism that you often get of modern slasher films in particular is that the characters are unlikable and you don't really care whether they live or die, but that wasn't the case here, so did a good job with some of the characterisation. Not so much the 2 lesbian characters, I didn't really care for them, but the other 4, so the aforementioned Peter and Lisa, and also 2 others, I think they might have been called Steve and Justine, were quite nice, had a likability to them that was a bit kind of charming, and also a sort of a sweetness to them as well that is often lacking in these films, so a good job was done there. The next good point that I've got is, I should point out, this is a very low budget, micro budget film, a budget of around about $3,700, so that was all they had in the kitty, so less than $4,000, so it's also very much sort of in the shot on video vein. It's kind of going after that style, so keep that in mind as well. But despite all this, I can report that the film looks really good visually. It's got a very sort of vivid colour palette, really bright colours used throughout the whole film. The majority of it is shot during the daytime in broad daylight, so that certainly helps. Makes it look very vibrant. Often with these low budget films, they suffer from like being far too dark and dingy. You can't really see what's going on, but that's certainly not the case here. So yeah, really good in that on that side of things. But one small gripe that I will say about the production values though is that the audio isn't quite as good as the visuals, and sometimes I couldn't really hear what was being said that clearly. And it is one of those things when there's often sort of background music playing while there's audio going, while there's like speaking going on. So sometimes that drowns out the speaking a little bit, and it's a tad too loud, the background music. But it's no big thing, but just a little minor gripe. Going back to the good points though, there's a scene near the end between Peter and Lisa that is quite well written. There's quite a bit of pathos and poignancy in there, which is a welcome addition to what is otherwise quite a silly film, quite a comedic silly film. Okay, the last good point that I've got is that the killer looks good enough in the Easter Bunny suit. I mean, it's quite comical, but at the same time there's a bit of a sinister vibe to it as well. kind of camp and silly, but also a little bit, not scary, but you know, a little bit sinister. Obviously, being a seasonal holiday slasher, they've already got the costume established. Really, it's obvious they would go for the Easter Bunny, so it's not like they've been creative and come up with it with something different. But it is what it is, and despite the fact that it's not the most original creation, they've still done a solid job with it. So that's good. And one final thing that I'll say that sort of kind of ties in with the Easter theme is that they do use chocolate Easter eggs throughout the film. They're quite prevalent, so that's a nice touch to tie it in with the Easter theme. And also towards the end, they use a lot of Easter decorations as well. So they really do try and sort of get the maximum out of the holiday. So that's nice. Moving on to the bad points though now. The first one is I don't think the kills look very good. They're quite bad in fact. Obviously largely down to the budget being very tiny, but there is a fair bit of what looks to be CGI type computerised blood, which I don't like. That's never a good thing, and it's in abundance here. On a couple of other occasions it looks really fake and really bad. But I think it's more so, but I'm more critical about than that, because obviously they can't help the budget. If it's low, it's low. They've got to work with what they've got. But one thing that I did kind of take umbrage with a bit more than that is that the kills are very kind of cartoonish in their style and their execution, very silly, and that kind of turned me off a little bit, to be honest. Next bad point then is that this is very much a comedy slasher in the same style as something like, say, Crinoline Head or Stitches. It actually reminded me quite a bit of Pork Chop, particularly with something that goes on with the pregnancy angle towards the end and a fetus kind of thing. And though this is probably very much a personal taste thing, I personally don't really like that in my slasher films. I mean, I guess it's down to what you like personally. I'm sure there are many people that do enjoy comedy kind of in their films, but for me, I prefer a more kind of gritty, realistic, violent approach to slasher films. So this kind of direction that they went in here with the more cartoonish, light-hearted approach didn't really sit that well with me. So that kind of disappointed me a little bit. For example, there's a park ranger character in it that's kind of on the periphery, and he pops up every now and then. I think he was really silly and unnecessary, far too sort of silly for my liking. I thought I could have taken him out and it would have been better. But it's going to be down to personal taste whether you've got a tolerance for that kind of thing or not. And the final bad point that I've got is that there is a twist ending that comes into effect towards the end, and as things build towards the conclusion, it's very predictable. You can see it coming a mile off. You'll probably see it coming in the very early stages of the film. What's going to happen towards the end, which is not a major problem because, like I said, there is some poignancy towards the end, so they do a decent job in some aspects. But it is very predictable, so you'll probably work out what's going to happen long before the conclusion is even in sight. So something to be aware of there. It's glaringly obvious. Let's put it that way. I'm going to briefly mention now the extras on the disc. I don't know if you can see them very well there. They are mentioned in that sort of red bit down the bottom and there. But basically it's a introduction from the director at the beginning that plays before this film starts from Richard Mogg. And you can watch that not having seen the film beforehand because it doesn't contain any spoilers. And besides that, there's also a making of featurette, again featuring the director Richard Mogg. He comes across as really likeable, really passionate about what he's doing, and it's quite interesting actually. It's a good featurette, so I'd recommend watching that. There was also a commentary track, but I didn't listen to that, so I can't really comment about that, but I'm not sure who contributes to it. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to bring in my verdict now, my conclusion, and I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10, which might sound a bit harsh, but it's going to be down to personal preference. Like I said, I don't really have much of a tolerance for kind of silly, light-hearted comedy and slasher films, but if you do, this could be a bit higher. Could be a 6 or even a 7 for you if you enjoy that particular flavour, but for me I don't. But it's down to personal taste, like I've said a few times now, if you appreciate comedy or not. But despite me not liking it that much, there are some good things that I did enjoy, like the likeable characters. The killer looked pretty cool with the bunny suit, but it is let down a little bit by the predictable ending, and the sort of low budget is very much in evidence when it comes to the kills and the special effects surrounding them. So that's it then, 4 out of 10. I'll put a kill count in the description, so feel free to check that out, but it will contain spoilers. Alright, thanks for watching, bye.